Hello and welcome to Broker Than You. I am your host, the best podcast host in the universe, Steve Cully. I would like to thank our sponsors at Procyon. Procyon, one of the top 50 fastest growing companies in the nation. They specialize in employee benefits, wealth management, and retirement planning. President Sean Rabinowitz is a proud supporter of our podcast network. Green Street Trust International, owned and operated by Rennell Jump and UConn legendary men's basketball player Jake Voskuhl. They specialize in tax plans for businesses large or small. They will save you money or get you a big fat return. To schedule your free strategic tax planning session today, go to www.greenstreettrust.com. Pete Finch in the Finch Law Firm is located in Bridgeport, Connecticut. Pete also has the best advertisements, commercials, billboards, you name it. He is the Better Call Saul of Connecticut. If you suffered any type of personal injury, slip and fall, a car accident, your mother-in-law decided to run you over with her car, your wife got angry one night, she decided to stab you, the Finch firm is for you. Pete has won legal battles all across the state of Connecticut, and he will go to war to get every dollar you deserve in compensation. All you have to do is remember, in a pinch, call Finch. Dynamic Human Performance is owned and operated by UConn legendary running back Andre Dixon. He trains boys and girls of all ages, all sports. He has a boot camp program, 7 days a week, 6 a.m. You want to get in shape, you go to Andre. He has an athletic development program where he trains boys and girls in the sport of their choice from the ground up, helps them to reach their full potential, be the best they can possibly be. Andre has sent boys and girls to college on scholarship for all different types of sports. He has a 5,000 square foot state-of-the-art facility in Hartford, Connecticut. So if you want to work with the best, go to www.dynamichumanperformance.com. Here we are for Broker Than You, and there I split up the ads so they're not all at once to make it more palatable for everyone. And
I like that.
The king of real estate of Erie himself, Mr. Laban Marsh.
Bro, in these vertical shots, you don't get the guns. These are registered.
Yeah, I know. I'm sorry. The vertical shots have helped the viewership, so that's unfortunately why we have to go to it. And we also
give
have
people what they want.
Yeah, we gotta give the people exactly what they want, and they want more of you. Nedvonne Young, the entrepreneur himself, Fresh Fold Laundry Co., Chapel Hill, North Carolina. Fresh, great to see you.
What's up?
Everyone had a fabulous Thanksgiving.
It was outstanding. Yeah. Yes, and I was pleased to report that my wife returned home from Puerto Rico Wednesday night before Thanksgiving. But unfortunately, I had to drive to Buffalo because she had some electronic malfunction with the Audi. So it's now in Buffalo. I had to drive up there to pick her up Wednesday night, and then I had to drive the keys up on Monday. just to drive to Buffalo to drop keys. So it was fun, but we did have
that's a long drive.
It's an hour and a half to and fro. So I just used the windshield time to make some phone calls and listen to some good podcasts and, things like that. You make it work, but there's nothing they could do because we left with the keys thinking, we'd have to go back up, and Drew had a game Friday, so we didn't do that. So I went up Monday with the keys, got it towed over there. But Thanksgiving itself was wonderful. Got to spend time with family, cousins, uncles, aunts. So had some good turkey. So it was great football, dude. Really good football. So I hope you all had a similar. And Steve, I know you were probably with your aunt, the real estate agent. So hopefully she updated you on the market conditions and things like that.
I got all updated. Yes, it was great. It was great. Exactly how I wanted to spend my Thanksgiving.
There you go.
Fresh.
I curious out of both of you, ham or turkey or both?
Oh, turkey. No ham.
Yeah.
No ham?
I don't eat pork.
I hate ham. Yeah.
I don't eat pork.
What?
Yeah. Yeah. I despise
the whole entire time you've known me, I've never eaten pork.
Bro.
I'd rather eat your shit than pork.
Bro, pork tenderloin, bacon, ham, like what?
Bacon, all right. I'll eat some bacon occasionally, but if we
animal.
put your shit on
turkey
a plate,
bacon,
I would eat it.
So no ham.
Bacon,
wow.
Beef bacon.
Turkey bacon's excellent. Yes, I like turkey bacon.
Actually, I did my first brisket. I smoked my first brisket.
Oh, nice. How'd that go?
It came out good. Out good. I got coached by one of my good friends. He's a pastor here at a University Methodist Church in Chapel Hill. He's from Texas, so he gets it done. He
knows. Low and slow, baby.
Yeah, low and slow. I mean, I did that thing 15 hours. 15 hours.
Oh my God.
That's delaying gratification, bro.
Yeah, it is.
I still can't believe you guys don't eat ham, though. That's because listen, we have one of the best provisions, Smith Provisions locally. Oh, dude. First of all, their hot dogs are best in the country. Steelers, Penguins, and the Pirates all use Smith Provisions hot dogs, and they make killer ham. So y'all are from the wrong parts of the country or something because they don't know how to make. I don't know. I'm baffled that you two. It's not a religious thing, right?
No, for health reasons, I don't do pork because it's just a very.
It's so good.
It's good, but it's just
it's not as good for you.
It's not good for you,
man.
It's not as good for you.
I don't know. That's up for debate.
Laban, you had wanted to discuss these 50-year mortgages, the benefits, and the what's going to happen with them if they're good ideas. And we were going through the interest rates alone, but you said if you pay them off reasonably, they can work to your benefit. And people had wanted you to explain more about them, and if you would ever put someone in a 50-year mortgage or recommend a 50-year mortgage to someone.
Yeah, and I think we might have talked a little bit off air about this too, but in regards to 50-year mortgages and like first-time home buyers will almost always look at 30-year mortgages, right? And there was a time where they do 40. The reason and rarely, I don't know the statistics, I could look it up, Google it, but how often does a 30-year mortgage fulfill the 30 years? And I would say it's rarely. What you have to think about and consider anytime you look at an amortization schedule, which is the timeline of the loan and how much interest is paid versus how much principal is paid. And so on those 30-year notes, the first year or two, you're paying primarily interest. So you're not knocking down the loan very much, but in certain areas of the country, you're going to have a natural appreciation in value of the home, and that's what creates that equity. So for a 50-year, what it's going to do is it's going to lower the payment because you now spread that over 50 years instead of 30 years. The biggest challenge is that, let's say you're in it for 5 to 7 years, similar to the first 2 or 3 years of a 30-year note, you're really not knocking down much principal at all. You're really paying interest almost exclusively. And so the idea of a 50-year note to properly leverage or utilize, I would say, is get into that 50 years so you can afford your monthly payment. Now, I have talked to people going back to the 30 year, and they say, well, should I go to a 20 or a 15? And if I tell them, especially if they're young, better to get locked into a 30-year note for a low interest rate that you can accelerate the payments on if you'd like to. Meaning, people tell you if you make two or an extra payment at the end of each year, it'll knock down your interest and take a few years off the loan. And so there are strategies to where the idea of the 50-year note would be, hey, I need the lowest monthly payment I can get. If we start making more money, I can accelerate those payments. But let's say on that 30-year where you get hung up with something in life and you can only afford that 30-year payment. If you were to locked into a 15-year that had a higher payment and now you can't afford it, better to have been locked into the 30-year note and just reduce your payment to the minimum payment, or going back to the original statement, get into the 30-year, accelerate your payments as if it's a 15-year note. Does that make sense? So you don't really want to get into a 50-year note and pay the minimum payment. You're never going to get ahead. But the whole idea is it's a way to reduce your monthly payment relative to a 30-year note, and have some buyers more comfortable. And then the hope is, hey, either interest rates come down or your value of property goes up enough to where now you can look at maybe refinancing out of a 50-year into a 30-year. But to me, the 50-year option would not be for everybody, but it would be for anyone that's renting, because if you can buy a home versus rent, you're ahead of the game. The biggest challenge is understanding that your first number of years are going to be very minimal on knocking down the principal of that loan. And again, for areas, your Californias, Floridas, Texas, where they seem to appreciate in value more rapidly, it's a safer bet. What concerns me on a 50-year note would be somebody in a hot market overpaying for the home, and now that market, just kind of plateaus. You paid top dollar, and now you're 5 years into your note, and the home has not appreciated in value because you paid top dollar, and now what you owe versus what it's worth, you have very little equity or room to get out of it. And it's a lot like, vehicles offering gap insurance because your loan is more than what that car is going to be worth in a short period of time. And so, again, you just hope that they're putting, and usually if they're doing a 50-year note, they're not putting a lot of money down. So those are kind of my concerns. And the other thing, and Fresh, I don't know your perspective on that, because a week ago we got into the discussion about my commercial loans that adjust every 5 years, and yet I am certain they're not adjustable rate mortgages.
Right, of course.
Like, I have an adjustable rate commercial loan, but it's not an ARM. No way. Got it. So, so my take on the 50-year mortgage, right? I think you got some pros and cons. I think like anything else, it's always about knowledge, man. It's knowing, it's a tool, right? A mortgage is a tool.
Right.
You can use it to your advantage, or you can let it take advantage of you, in my opinion, right? So I think what you mentioned about the accelerating your mortgage, provided your lender allows you to do it without any penalty. If you have no prepayment penalty, things like that, those are great, right? If you can, you want to make sure those stipulations. So I would say, right, if it's something that's coming down the pike that we have no control over, it's coming, right? If it's happening and it's going to happen, I would strongly encourage people to go in it with the end in mind. The end meaning that I am going to accelerate this mortgage. I think it has some, a lot of, it got a couple pros, and it has more cons than pros to me. But here's the pros for me, right? Obviously, Laban touched on it, about the, lower monthly payments. It can improve cash flow for homeowners, which you can use for other things. Can boost home ownership rates, and potentially reduce pressure on renters, right? So all kind of things that Laban touched on. So, but to break it down, I'll take so to not belabor it, I will take my take from my vantage point. I'm an investor, right? From an investor, I look at it. You tell me if you look at it differently, Labe. I look at this is great, right? Because I already know this is great for me because I can use this tool to get in for the property less, of which I'm really not paying the majority of the stuff anyway. I'm not really coming out of pocket. My end user, my tenants or whatever are going to absorb the cost of me of this. But now, right, my rental rates and things are going to stay the same, right? Those things are not going down. So now I just get into a property for much cheaper, still charge the same amount of rents, but now I can take what it would be at a 30, 20-year mortgage. If I'm a savvy investor, and let that additional funds, I can have a delayed gratification, have that accelerate the payment of this loan going pay down, which essentially I can turn that 50-year mortgage into a 15 or 10. And knowing that I got it for much cheaper, it's a benefit to me as an investor to take advantage of something like that. And I think if homeowners take the mindset of an investor, and this is how I encourage every homeowner to be. This is a piece of property. It will move again. It doesn't matter whether you live in it till you pass or whatever, it's going to move. Do not treat this like this family heirloom that you're going to pass down to your kids. Guess what? Your kids may never, they have no intention. Some of your kids may, if you have kids, may move off to 10 states away, never have no intention on ever visiting this property ever again outside of you being there. Once you're there, no longer there, it's like, all right, let me get rid of this. So that being said, go in with the end in mind. Look, I'm going to get rid of this thing. So this thing is going to get rid of. This is a piece of property. It's
commodity.
It's a commodity, and you boom. So that's how you look at it. You look at it that way, then you're not tied to it. Take the emotion out. Look at it from an investment standpoint, and take advantage of something like accelerating it and doing and making sure you can get into it that way. So that's what I would say. And the last thing is a ton of cons. You know what I'm saying? You have a higher, much higher lifetime interest rate. It can build equity much slower, and it could potentially increase housing prices, and
makes it more affordable.
Yeah, it makes it more affordable in theory, but people do the math. You can do the math. You can you can finagle it whatever way you want to make it make sense.
But right? we saw this. I don't remember what year it was when they were offering first-time home buyers the $8,000 credit. And it's like, yeah, but guess how many sellers just added $8,000 to their sale price when they knew the buyer? You know what I mean? It's that whole thing. And I know one of the other things, and Steve, I don't know if you had specific questions, but one of the things we talked about a little bit was hard money. And it's interesting because the property that I listed, it's probably been now 2 weeks, maybe, that I did the video for and all that. I got an offer. I got an offer last week that was lower than I anticipated. And now it was cash, no contingencies to close before the end of the year, which was appealing. But the offer was, let me see if I can do the math. It was about 20% under. It was a 20% discount. And it's that like, right. No thanks. Yeah. Well, then, and let me tell any listener, if you are a buyer of anything, but especially real estate, I got a call yesterday, or the text message yesterday from an agent who had not yet shown the property. She was actually scheduled for this morning to show it. And she texted me a verbal offer, which is worthless, by the way. And when a buyer says to me, I don't know if I mentioned this on the show, if a buyer says to me, can I make a verbal offer? I say to them, would you like a piece of cake? And they look at me like I'm crazy. And I said, if I ask you if you want a piece of cake right now, you may or may not want one. But if I set a piece of cake down with a glass of milk and a fork, will you take a bite? Yeah, like that's a verbal offer. Me asking you if you want cake versus putting a piece of cake on a plate and a fork in it with a glass of milk. Like, make the written offer. So her verbal was so low. She actually was. It's listed at it was listed at 275. She offered 200, and I'm like, what? So then I'm starting to like wonder, am I crazy about my price? Well, then last night I'm at McDowell's basketball game. Shout out to Coach Quietek for his first win as a McDowell Trojan girls basketball coach in a hard-fought game against the Clary Beavers.
I love it.
Oh, it was great. But it's just one of those things. I'm sitting at the game and I get a written offer from an agent that just showed it. And it was a good enough offer that I signed it that night, sent it over to him. He's got to make one initial. And it's sold. So, like, for a price that I thought it was going to sell for, and yet I thought I was going nuts because the two prior buyers thought they would steal this thing or whatever else. And buyers can make offers whatever they want. As a seller myself on this property, which I've disclosed, I'm the owner, I'm a licensed agent, all that stuff. I understand a buyer trying to get their best deal, but I don't have to accept anything. No seller has to accept anything. And again, I think just flippantly throwing around numbers when you haven't even shown it yet, it's like, what? This is just not a professional approach to doing business. So I've been a little discouraged with because it's winter and there's snow out. People are, I don't know if it's lazy, because like you can write an offer and have it digitally signed easily. But make the written offer. It's going to go so much further. But that specific property, one of the things we bought that in 2012, and then I refinanced it in 2015 because it's about to come up for its adjustment in January. Well, when we bought it as a bank repossession, and we probably put 15 to 20,000 into fixing it up. So we bought it for we bought it for 140, had about 160 in. And at the time, we're talking, post recession, the bank comes in and says, yeah, it's worth 140. And I'm like, what? I bought it for 140. I put 20,000 in. And so the bank was only going to give me 80% of the 140, which that's 112,000. So it's like I already owed 140 on a hard money that we were paying 10%. And so I had to stay on that hard money note for another 2 years until the market improved. There was appreciation in value. And then what I ended up doing is I had another property owned in the same entity. And so I did what was called a blanket loan. So I took the value and the other place had a little more equity in it. So I did one loan on both properties. And at the time, the rate was like 4.5. And then it adjusted down to the 3.8 I'm enjoying right now. But there are so many ways to skin a cat. But that's where, going back to the 50-year note, what it does is it gets your foot in the door. And then you have to kind of rely on the market a little bit. You have to be able to delay gratification. You have to know the ebb and flow of value. And so it's been a little bit of a wild ride for this property specifically. But it has been interesting to see a market 10 years ago, 12 years ago, where there were bank repossessions. I mean, this house sold originally for $160 5 years before it went to bank repossession, and we bought it for $140. So you're going to start seeing that again. In fact, when I get the daily record, I see names and, bank repossessions are starting to happen again. People are not able to afford, or they're not prioritizing their home and mortgage, which was an interesting stat I saw recently. Well, it wasn't recently. It was actually a couple of years ago, where they said people are more likely to pay their credit card bill than their mortgage payment. And but do you know why?
No.
Well,
because as soon as you pay your credit card bill, say you drop $4,000 on your balance, you get a fresh $4,000 to use on that credit card.
Oh, to spend, correct.
You pay that mortgage, say it's a $4,000 mortgage, that money is gone to the bank, and now you have equity in the home, but you don't have working capital. And so that is where you start to see people just not making good decisions. And with interest rates where they're at, we used to tell people, well, look at a home equity loan. And you can still do that if you need that and you have some equity in your home and the value's gone up. But you got to get ahead of it. And when it's a liability, meaning it's your personal residence and there's no cash flow coming in, it's very different than a cash flowing asset where, I could keep this home, refinance it, and rent it to somebody else. But it's time for us to move along, which is why we listed it. And I'm just thankful I got it sold in less than 2 weeks to what seems like a very excited buyer. I know the neighbor to the north, so I want to try to provide a good neighbor. But the market is definitely shifting, and the fact that somebody could offer $200,000 verbally on a 275 listing tells me that the market is shifting. So, and again, no seller has to accept it.
Big time.
But here's the thing. Don't be offended by a written lower offer. Be offended by all the people that came through and said it's not even worth making an offer. Because a lot of sellers get offended by low offers. And that's where, again, what I do, and I tell agents, I had a lower, so I was listed at 275. When I got the offer of 230, I countered at, I think, 262.5, but I adjusted the price in the MLS to 269.9 immediately. Because it's like, if I'm going to give you, one buyer, a discount, I'm going to offer a similar discount to the entire market and then be willing to work with anything new that comes in. So that's my little spiel on both hard money and the idea of 50-year notes. I think they're definitely things that you got to talk about. And listen, for people that don't own anything, getting yourself into a property that makes sense, it's definitely one of the best things you can do. And to me, it's still the American dream, and it should be home ownership.
Yeah. So let me piggyback on that.
I agree with you there.
It is the American dream.
For sure. There's a couple of things that you mentioned, I think is worth kind of like just touching on. So when you mentioned how, like what people can do, I think you had mentioned like doing like a home, like a HELOC, right?
Yeah.
So people can take advantage of things like a HELOC, take advantage of something called like infinite banking. Some people may be familiar with it or not. So, and you touched on the credit card thing, right?
Yeah.
So a lot of times people use these credit cards at these crazy high interest rates where if you have a home with equity, you can use that HELOC same way you would a credit card, but you pay probably a third, right, of the interest. So if most credit cards are like 29% or something like that, but you can get a HELOC for like 10 or less.
Probably less.
10 or less, right? So if you took the same line of credit, let's just say you have a $10 or even $20,000 credit card, you essentially could take that HELOC, use it as you would the credit card, but it takes the discipline to not be like, all right, I'm just gonna go buy this. But no, it's like you treat it as if you would just pay off your bills, including your mortgage. The concept of infinite banking, it kind of basically to simplify it, you basically are moving towards putting your HELOC in first position over you're paying down. You want to pay down your mortgage and all the other bills. You do that, put all that money, put it in the same place. You're basically overloading that, paying that mortgage off early by using a HELOC, and you keep, you're paying it down, paying your mortgage down while paying your bills down, just pouring all the money in there, and you just start to rapidly see that your mortgage go down in a relatively short amount of time. Now, once you get the HELOC, once your HELOC is in first position and you essentially have no mortgage, say you do that 7 years, 10 years, or whatever time, or even some people could do it in a short amount of time, depending on how aggressive you are.
Yeah, aggressive, right.
Yeah, how disciplined you are and how disciplined you are. Now you do that. Now it's not multiple things. And that's another thing. People prioritize because what is like you mentioned, like it's the mortgage thing is delayed gratification, right? All right, you'll own it, officially own it, right? You technically own it, but you will officially own it over time when it's paid off. But that credit card is like, okay, this allows me to do these different things and
when you want to, when you need to,
things I want to. And then people don't even max out the credit cards the way they're supposed to. When I say max out, I mean maximize the use of it, not maximize
points, cash back.
Points, you get cash back. Like any Amex holders, there's so many different things and ways you could take advantage of your Amex Platinum, your Amex Gold, different lounges. If you travel a lot, I'm pretty sure if your wife travels as much as you say she travels, she has to have access to these lounges. So she's probably doing a bunch of stuff with a platinum, and that just makes sense. So to bring it all home, you can do, instead of you pouring that into this credit card, you basically create a line of credit through something that you purchase, like your home. Also, and at the same time, using it to reduce your mortgage, to reduce the amount of your mortgage, and pay that off quicker, and then still have access to be able to purchase and do things, which is just amazing. Because people are just not educated on how to utilize tools like loan. Like, I will forever mention that these are tools.
Right.
We can use these tools, or we can let these tools use us. And unfortunately, or the creator of these tools to use us. Which is what's happening. Credit card companies will use us, right? But we can take the knowledge and flip it on them and reduce things and make things work more in our favor. That's very important for people to take that advantage of it. And it's still the same concept. It's a similar concept you would use if you decided to go with a 50-year mortgage because it's out there. If you just take advantage of something like that, it could be amazing for you to do so many great things. Or you could let it take advantage of you, and you have the concept that you're at 40, you purchase your first home, or 30, you purchase your first home, and you think you're going to pay it off by the time you're, by the time you're 70, 80.
Oh,
like, that's
50,
not
yeah. No, and I think that, well, and going back to like budgeting, Dave Ramsey, who I take everything with a grain of salt. I love Dave Ramsey, and I love Robert Kiyosaki, but I think Dave Ramsey focuses on the lowest common denominator, and so it's one of those things where what I do like is that he says to spend every penny of your paycheck. And that doesn't mean blow it. It means like 10% should go to tithing, 10% should go to savings, and then like spend every dollar. And if there's $2 left over at the end of your paycheck for your budget, put it into savings. I you know what I mean? It's not like blow your whole. I don't mean blow your whole paycheck. It means,
I think he means allocate.
Exactly.
Allocate every penny, not spend it per se, right?
Exactly. But there should not be like, oh, well, and I'm notorious for when I get checks to peel back a couple C notes, just for pin money. And so my wife, like early in the marriage, she's like, hey, I thought your check was X amount. Why is it like $300 like less going in the bank? I'm like,
clocking that check.
Oh, you saw that? Oh, so I've been doing that for 20 plus years. Just peel back a little bit. I'm somebody, I have to have cash on me at all times, not in a way that I want to get jumped, but in a way that, like, my youngest brother lives by the debit card. And I'm like, hey, bro, we're talking $5 to get in this game. Cash, like, they don't have the square. Like, how do you not have cash somewhere? I have money snapped in my glove boxes.
Venmo you.
It's a generational thing, though.
It is. It is.
And I think this, and not to go off on, this is an appropriate tangent, where they say young people today they don't make money or look at spending money. I say that because, like, they have auto draft on their payroll, right? So the money goes right in, they don't ever touch it. And then they use a credit card or debit card and spend it. It's like they never touch the money. And so it's very different. And the reason Dave Ramsey has the money envelopes is that to make it real. And I mean, we've talked about this before, where $100 bill that I give to somebody versus using $100 on the credit card scanner. Now that $100 that I gave him is still worth $100, but the $100 I spent on the credit card, the vendor had to spend 3%. So now that's a $97 bill, right? And then they spend that $97 bill through another credit card, and it's worth $94. And so that's where I love cash. I think there's appropriate reasons for cash, and part of it for me is the discipline. I'm not a good saver, so I don't spend $5 bills and $1 bill.
No,
and
you
then
don't.
At the end of the year, I go and cash it in and put it in my kids' savings accounts. So that there's just little techniques that you can work on to improve your discipline and everything else. But listen, the other thing Dave Ramsey says is that the two things your parents had but never talked about were sex and money. And that is so true for so many families, dude. And I'm not saying, but it is something where I don't know why it's so taboo, and it's not a braggadocious thing. It's just, hey, listen, math is real. And so just like any, accounting ledger of income and expenses, every household, every government, every authority, everybody has a ledger with expenses and income. And I talk to agents a lot and I'll say, well, how much did you generate in revenue? And they know how much they took home, but they don't know how much they brought in necessarily. Like, what is your gross revenue versus your net? Again, what you would think are pretty simple, and I think they are mathematically and economically pretty simple, ideas. But wow, it goes back to the discipline, because you get a HELOC, pay down your credit card, put the credit card in the freezer, cut it up, like don't use it. I don't know. As soon as you make it accessible again and you don't have the discipline, you're going to get back into that trap. So, Steve, you got questions, bro?
Yeah. We had a question about somebody who wants to get into real estate, I guess as a second profession later in life. He wants to switch professions into real estate and wanted advice as people who do that. What is the typical age where people will make a decision and say, I want to try my hand at real estate? And he also found, I think he said it was an 8-week course. Is that normal for?
Yeah. I mean, when I first got my license in 2003, it was like classroom only. The internet was a thing, but we just didn't have like and this is part of what my wife is doing with her franchise. You have to build that out with the, programming and the videos and all of that, as far as like a continuing education or, to get your initial license. So as far as an age, like Mackenzie turns 18 in April. You just have to be 18 to get a license. You might need a high school degree. Now that I think so. Either way, you can get it when you're 18. I don't know if you do.
No, you don't.
No, I don't think so.
18.
As long as you're 18 and you can pass the classes. So I want Mackenzie to get licensed so that she has her license. And you're
not sending her to the University of Geneva.
It's Geneva College. I'm still not sure, but hey, I found out. I took her to Fredonia, and I didn't realize
Fredonia is good. That's fine.
One of McDowell's former basketball players, and by the way, we have the 10th annual Marsh Round Ball Classic at McDowell. But Coach Smiley is the men's basketball coach at Fredonia, and he played at McDowell. I didn't even realize that. Now I don't know where we were talking about, though.
No, I was asking you about getting into real estate as a second career. Someone was asking.
You were talking about how you're going to encourage Mackenzie at 18.
Yeah. So, and I think like Levi got his license out of high school. He didn't go to college. And so if you're 18, it's a great thing to have. Whether or not you leverage it and utilize it appropriately is another question. My mother got her license in 1998 at the age of 47. Wow.
Oh, okay.
That's how old I am right now.
Second career for her.
Yeah, that was our freshman year, or was it our beginning?
98. Listen,
is it the spring or the fall? Because that would determine whether it was freshman or sophomore year.
Well, it was our sophomore year that she became licensed. She started taking her classes after because I played as a freshman, and she wanted to leave work at noon so she could get to the hotel to see us before we went to bed on Friday nights. And her boss at the time needed her to stay till 5. Her boss at the time was also my uncle. So it was an interesting dynamic, but that is what kind of spurred her to get her license, that she wanted independence. She did not want to have to stay at a job until 5. And now this woman's been making her own hours for the last 27 years and started it when she was 47, which I literally just turned 47, which is crazy to think, I feel very fortunate to have got my license. How old was I? 26, maybe? No, 03, 25. I was 25 when I got my license, and I've been in it now 22 years. So there's never the wrong age or a right age to get into it. Get in it. It's like investing in real estate. The earlier, the better.
Yeah, I'm about to say the earlier, the better is when you do it. So again, from that perspective, I'm going to come from a different angle. You don't need a license to get into real estate, right?
No, you don't.
You don't need a license to get into real estate.
You don't.
I think
that's true.
There's different paths. So someone who wants to get into real estate, you can get into real estate a couple different ways. Some low-level ones, you could bird dog. A bird dog is an agent or an investor's like a great asset for them. You're just kind of like your feet to the pavement. You're driving around. They call it driving for dollars. You're looking for opportunities in deals.
That's what Razul was doing for a while. Yeah.
Yeah. So you do that and you get a little bread that way. You can wholesale. You can get deals under contract and basically flip that contract to an investor or someone, and flip that thing to someone else. So you could do that. You can, and then you could take it to the next level to where now you are the end buyer, you're the investor, you're buying, you're getting the deal from the bird dog or the wholesalers bringing the deal to you. And this helps. It's just like kind of like on the job training, like how a lot of times if you're a business owner, you do a lot of the different things so that you have the knowledge. So like if you start out as a bird dog, basically go from bird dog to wholesaler to investor, now you know what the bird dogs do. Now you know what the wholesalers do. You know their thing.
You learn the whole process.
And then as an investor, then it's just moving from kind of like ABC level types of deals, if you will, and then different classes, right? You can go from different classes of properties from your residential to your commercial. And then when you go into commercial, you have your office, your retail, you have your industrial, like it's different things you could go into. And then you have your mixed use type where you got a couple mixes of those things. So I just kind of ran through a quick timeline of like how you can start on the lowest level, and then you can kind of get in that way. And there's so many things even in between that you can kind of do, but you could go license way, which Laban mentioned. And I just want to give you can kind of go.
But you're right. And what I find is a lot of investors, the reason they want to get their license is it gives them access to the MLS, which anymore, if it's in the MLS, the internet sees it. So there's not as much of a value to that per se. But one of the things I wanted to give a tip to any bird dog is this, because that's how I started, right? I'm out looking, I'm doing my due diligence on anything that comes on the market. I'm evaluating what are the rents. But one of the things that I looked at when I was looking is I had a way, and I'm sure you have different databases to search this, but I would look for owners of property that were on the tax rolls that were out of state, number one. Right? Meaning they weren't in town. They had an out of state, so they're probably paying a property manager. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is when you go to one of the reasons most investors invest are the tax benefits. And one of the tax benefits is depreciation. And on a residential property, you can depreciate over 29 and a half years. 27 and a half years. On commercial, it's 39 and a half. So what you want to do is search for out-of-town owners that have owned the building for at least 20 years. Because now you can make an educated approach to the seller and say, hey, I see that you've owned this for 2 decades. You're probably getting close to the end of your depreciation schedule. Is there any chance you'd consider selling this? And they already know, wow, this investor is not some write a letter, hey, seller, I'd like to pay you half of what the assessed value is. But it's like an educated approach to say, hey, I did my due diligence. I know you're out of town from this property. I know that you've owned it enough that you've probably utilized a lot of the depreciation for tax purposes. Would you consider selling? And I had a guy on a commercial property I did this with about 15 years ago. And he said, honestly, I sold a property earlier this year. I want to wait until next year for my write-off of the next year's taxes and things like that. And then there's times when the tax laws change. In fact, I bought her 11 unit on December 31st of 2012 because in 2013, I can't remember if it was the inheritance or no, it was capital gains. There was something where they either wait. I can't remember what it was about capital gains. Somebody have to look up what the laws changed to in 2013. But the seller, part of the reason he sold it to him is because he needed to sell it before the end of the year. And we literally closed on December 31st of 2012 to accommodate that tax implications that he was about to incur.
So did he seller finance or you did it traditional?
No, we bought it cash. Yeah. So we didn't have a loan. You know what I mean? We paid cash. Didn't matter to him He took the money. He didn't have any. I don't think he had any debt against it. So it was one of those things where he was trying to sell it.
When you broke up, what did you say? He didn't have what?
I said he didn't have any debt service against it.
Okay.
And so when he wanted to sell it, his asking price is about what I'd be asking for it right now, 12 years later. So it was one of my toughest negotiations in my career. But it worked out really well. And thankfully we were able to get it done. And part of the reason we didn't finance it is I think I presented it to Meg's father at Thanksgiving, and then we had to close within 30 days. So traditional financing would not have got it done. To the point where, again, it worked out, but it worked out because the seller was coming into some tax implications. And so it's a good way for those bird dogs to get started is to look at homes that have been owned for a substantial amount of time. And that may mean, hey, it works out well and they don't want to sell it, or it means they've owned it long enough, they've had enough headaches that they're ready to move along. And I would say for my selling in the last 2 years, it's a combination of both.
Yeah. So to add to that, just the tax things, one of the things that it could have been is it could have had a 1031 exchange, and they could have had to make sure they hit it in 90 days or something.
No, I know it. I don't think it was inherited. Remember the year that Steinbrenner died, and there was like no inheritance tax.
Yeah,
I mean, it was something similar to that.
Something took advantage. Okay,
something where it was. It either ended in 2012 or it was going to change in 2013 to where we had to close that. I actually need to Google that. I'll report back next week.
Got it. And then something you mentioned. So a follow-up question. So a lot of times as a bird dog, you'll ask that question. You ask the question that Laban mentioned, like, have you ever thought about, are you thinking about selling?
Yeah.
Right. A lot of times you're going to get a no. So here is a follow-up question that I always ask, or I would always encourage to ask, and what I did early on when I learned it was, okay, I understand that, but if you did, what price would it be? Like, you know what I mean? Like you want to keep the conversation. Right. So if you would sell it, let's just say hypothetically, if you were to sell it, how much would you sell it for? Like right now, like what would be a number that would be enticing for you to sell it? Because then it's just making them think, okay, well, it's giving you an understanding of how they think, what they think the value is. And then sometimes that can be another open door. Maybe that number is like, makes sense. They're like,
rarely.
Hey, I didn't think I could get that number.
Yeah. Now, and maybe that's true. Yeah, that could be true if they're not really paying attention, but
it's not even they're not paying attention. Let's just say they go, no way I'm going to get this number. Right. So I'm going to put a number out there. So, but when you've done negotiations for some time, you can manipulate things to work in your favor either way. So the way that I go into deals and the way I look at things is one of two ways. It's the price doesn't really matter in a sense in most cases, because it's either I tell you your price, my terms, my price, your terms. So I'm gonna get either I get my price or I get my terms. So it's always a win-win.
It's any negotiation has to be a win-win to a certain extent. And that's where it goes back to kind of what you were talking about, pain points, just like in business. Like if you can find their pain point, that's because I thought one of the things you were going to lead into is if they did say yes, like I consider selling it, say, is there any chance you'd be willing to carry a note? And that's going to give you an understanding of, do they have any debt service, or are they in a position to where, and I thought about that because like, even with this home that I'm selling, if somebody's putting 20% down with a bank, it's like, hey, if you want to put 10% down with a bank, I'd carry 10, and then you can get away with an 80% loan to value, but not have to bring the whole, 80, as long as a bank approves that. So that is something where as a seller or as an owner financing, going back to that hard money thing, and then you shorten the amortization. You know what I mean? So if they can get a rate of 6.5, but you want to carry a note for $10,000 or the 10% down payment, call it $20,000 at 8.5 for 3 years, it's for them, they're going to pay that down quicker. And so there's definitely strategies that you can use to get your foot in the door, But it's all about asking the right questions, Fresh. You know what I mean? And if you get a no, find out why not. You don't want to sell because you don't even get the price you want, or there's got to be like everything is always for sale. I mean, any salesman will tell you everything is for sale. Like
it's not
I
for
might
sale
not want to
until it's
sell
for
it.
sale.
I might not want to sell it in my mind, but if you tell me a price where it's like, hey, I cannot refuse that.
Yeah, that was the whole point. So the thing
100%.
is making sure. My thing was I was given one of the part of was just keep the conversation going, because a lot of times this is over the phone, right? You're not in person. So this is a phone call. And then you're going, once the person says no, some people, that is just a shut off button for like, say, the bird dog. You have to keep this conversation going.
Yeah.
You have to find out more, because the no, it destroys everything. You have to get past the no. You have to treat the no like it's just like, okay, the no is like passing off the baton, or it's a segue to something else. Okay, no just means I need to shift the conversation somewhere else to keep it going. And then a lot of times it's just, for me, I'm about building a rapport. So build a rapport somehow, find commonalities. Oh, especially, I would love, nowadays, we couldn't do this back in the day, like, when you had to make these calls, you couldn't do a video call. So now, if I'm on a phone call with you and I just see, I'm looking you up and down, I'm looking around the room, I'm looking at everything where I can make the connection. Oh, man, that's a nice hat you have on. Did you go to UConn, or
I played football for the Huskies.
Oh, you played football. Oh man, you must have. Oh, I see. You look kind of.
It's all about rapport.
Then you just start talking. Then it's like you stroke the ego. All of these things. So those are just skills that you do, and then now they let the guard down, because everybody got their gates up first, right? They're tired of getting all of these people harassing them. Then now the gates open. Then you go into start talking about other things. Or at the very least, you put yourself into a position where you get permission to follow up. At the very least, that needs to be at least the minimum goal.
And I think it's to follow up. That permission is also goes in line, and this you throw this in there almost on a jocular sort of kidding around, but just say, hey, are you the decision maker? I didn't know if this is something you had to run home to your wife about. You know what I mean? Now, he may get offended by that. He might get frustrated about that. He might even say, well, my husband makes the decisions, not me. And I'm all right with that. But again, that's where you sometimes have to be careful with your jokes. But it is important to know, are you the decision maker? Because if I'm talking to you and you really have to go and talk to the missus because you can't do anything without her, then any of that conversation needs to be in front of the decision maker. And again, if they admit, no, I usually talk to my business partner or something else, it's like, great, can we get them on the phone with us? And again, you have to build that rapport, but you also have to take messages from people and then stay persistent, right? Because like you said, ask for permission to follow up and then actually follow up. That's part of the problem, is that same thing in real estate sales. They follow up once and then they think that's the trick. It's like, no, every week, just check in, see how they're doing. Has anything changed? Every 2 weeks. And they should tell you, hey, listen, I'll let you know when I'm going to make a decision. But it is having that salesmanship and kind of that, not charisma, but an understanding of what you're trying to accomplish. And to that point earlier, it's got to be a win-win in some fashion, or it's never going to fly.
Laban, how do people diagnose or know what their home buying budget is? Was one of the questions that came in.
Yeah, that's a great question. And that's where it's always smart to get pre-approved, preferably with a lender, a mortgage broker that can shop out to different banks and cater to maybe your needs. There's different programs for, I know even locally, there's some programs for like teachers or emergency workers,
municipal workers.
Yeah, there's all sorts of programs. So I think that's where getting pre-approved and being like everybody says, is this going to be a hard pull on my credit? Yeah. They got to make sure you're credit worthy, and that, again, it's all about debt to income ratio, right? Depending on how much debt you currently incur and then how much income you have will determine what your qualification is. And I tell a lot of people, and it is true, I think especially in Erie because we're pretty frugal here, is that people will be approved for substantially more than what they want to purchase. In fact, I'm working with a couple right now as a buyer where they started off looking at $500,000. They were approved for like $650,000. And as it all came down, like they want to be around $350,000 based on what their monthly payment would be. So that's quite all right, but it's important. That's why you want to get pre-approved, because you want to know how much your payment will be, what's your interest rate, what are the terms. But a lot of times, or, we started looking at $500,000 homes and they really liked them, but they didn't want to make that monthly payment. And so then they had to start coming down. A lot of times somebody might start looking at lower end properties, even though they're approved for more. And if you don't find what you like, you have to keep upping your price until you get into that market where you can tell, yeah, this is what I can afford. This is what I want to spend. And then have a good quality agent that's out there willing to get you through these places, because homes still, if they're priced right and they're in a good condition, they're going to sell quick.
Yeah. They're going to go
fast. And this comes back to the 50-year. So this might be a tool that you could use the 50-year. Again, I would say only if you can follow this strategy I'm laying out for you. This is the only way I would recommend you do it. If you're going to basically accelerate it, because now you can get the lower payment. You want to have that lower payment. You make you just make a couple extra payments throughout the year. You can roll that into the payments, and you're good to go. Now you just turn that 50 into a 20, 25-year mortgage, and you're still within the range of what you want to be payment-wise.
Right. Well, and there again, if let's say you get a bump in your salary, right? You get a raise. Well, you can go in and accelerate that mortgage payment on the 50-year note. If you were paying, $900 a month, you can go start paying $950, and that will knock down or make an extra $900 payment, before Christmas, so that they're, next year you're getting a lower principal amount.
Okay. This person wanted to know the fluctuation in the real estate market. How often would you say that it changes day to day, week to week?
Oh man, listen.
Is it fluid?
I'll tell you this. I actually, and this was on Facebook. I can't remember if it was yesterday or today as a memory, because it was from 2020, so 5 years ago, and it was right here. So it was residential sales were up 8.8%, and the listings were up 5.2%, but the average sale was 164. Now it's 234. I mean, this is 5 years ago, and my comment was historically low rates with historically low inventory, right? If it's historically low interest rates and low inventory, it is a seller's market, because a buyer can get a low rate, and yet you're one of the few homes out on the market. So like November of 2020 is when we started to see, man, these things are like starting to sell pretty quick. And then we're after the pandemic, right? So we're now back open. But when we opened back up, there was nothing available, but rates were low at the time. And so for people that bought in the 2020, and I would say it was up through the summer of 22, where rates were still pretty favorable. So how long does it take a market to shift? I mean, I would say years. Those of us in the market, you can see it shift over time. It feels like it just happened 6 months ago, because I would say our largest appreciation in value was 2023, 2024. 25 has plateaued from the 24 numbers, which have been historically high. With inventory still relatively low, the problem is rates are high. And so if they would lower rates, it would almost turn back the clock 5 years, and you'd have, once again, low inventory and low interest rates, but it's going to drive prices up. So markets are, a market doesn't shift in less than a year would be a safe bet.
Of course.
I mean, but it just depends on where you're at. If you're at 11 months of that, you know what I mean?
It's usually, like he said, it usually takes a good while, like 5+ years, outside of some kind of major event happening where or like a major event that it causes people to like panic. Some people panic and they do things like, it's kind of funny. Like my wife was talking about this the other day, how I think in 2020, we had certain family members, won't mention, who started to liquidate. They started to liquidate some of their stocks, right? They started to liquidate stuff because people did. So people, they were like, they freaked out. But again, like we've talked about this before, when people panic, when there's blood in the streets, it's a lot of money to be made. That's the time when you have to strike. You have to be the one, like how you got to be like a firefighter when everybody's running away, or policemen or something. When everyone's running away from the fire and they're running away from the danger, you're going in. So then you put your cape on, you be that hero, and you take the risk, and the reward is sure to follow. It's been proven throughout history. When people panic, these people, you come in and you take it, you go, all right, everybody's selling. Let me go ahead and buy. Obviously, you got to pay attention to history, buy right, do those things. Same thing. You'll have some people like, you know what? And this was happening too. People are like, I'm just leaving the country, so I'm going to sell all my assets. That was a perfect time for you to go ahead and start snatching up things. And it's still happening. Some people are still like, you know what? I don't want to deal with what's going on in the country. I want to go somewhere else where I don't have to deal with this. Yeah. And people are doing it, man. I see people move out of the country all the time, and you have opportunities to buy things.
And kind of on the other side of the coin, there is in 2020, there is a big like push for the staycation, meaning, hey, if you ever get stuck at home again, improve your home so that if you're stuck, you can have a staycation. And so I think a lot of people did invest, whether it was an outdoor pool, an in-ground pool, or some feature to their home, a movie theater, something that maybe they didn't think they needed, but they did it because they were locked in their home for so long, and that's where they thought they'd be staying. So that where they improved the home to where they really like being there. And then now you double the interest rate to what they are locked into, and it just makes this market fairly stagnant, except for homes, to your point, Fresh, where they're like, I'm done. I'm out of here. I'm moving away. And even Lucas had said, because we gave our pies away to clients recently, and he said, I want to say 7 or 8 of his clients from the last year, like moved out of town. I had a client move to the Maryland area. You, man, you know what I mean? So
you got to pay attention to what's happening.
And I've always said Erie's market is a lot of churn. Like it's somebody moving from the city into the suburbs because their first home was in the city, and now they are starting a family and want to move out into a different school district or something. But it's been a lot of local churn. We need to start creating larger job opportunities to bring people and attract people to the Erie area, which is big on housing. And that's why commercial real estate is so important. When we see I just drove to Buffalo and I saw they had new construction going on, these townhouses. They had to have 5 or 6 buildings being worked on. So I can't remember if that was Fredonia area, but it's like, hey, this market is improving. If they're building this much housing for people, there has to be a demand. And so on the commercial side, when we see commercial churns and new buildings and businesses opening up, that's job opportunities for people now to stop being renters and start, buying homes.
Yeah, we see those cranes. Yeah, you definitely. That's definitely a move. But it's like anything else, man. Pay attention to the markets.
Yeah, for sure.
Laban, the last thing I'll ask you is, we talked about it on the political show, and I think I mentioned it briefly last week. The interest rate for homeowners is going up in the next 2 years. It's 8%, I believe, in 2026.
Who says that?
8%. It was on the news. Interest rate for homeowners is going up 8% in the next.
Potentially, I mean, it's probably gonna. Yeah.
For this year, and then 8% for 2027.
No,
so
I don't
people
believe it.
Wanted to get your thoughts on that.
I don't believe it.
You don't believe it?
No, I mean, listen, I know the Fed. I mean, the Fed won't make a decision that puts it to you like that. If the market starts to tank, which I pray it does not, they're going to have to do something. I mean, I don't know that can be predicted with much confidence. But if if that is true, you better buy a house right now, because I tell people this all the time. If interest rates come down, you can refinance. But if interest rates go up, no bank will honor what the rate was 6 months ago or 12 months ago. And so again, because right now I'm seeing people in the low sixes. In fact, I think the last offer we got was between 5.75 and 6.5 was their request for the interest rate, which isn't too bad. And again, it does depend on your credit score. It depends on how much money you're putting down. It depends on your debt to income ratio. But at the end of the day, the fixed rate that people lend off of, whether it's LIBOR or another, rate, I don't know how they can predict rates being in the 8% in 2 years. And I would love to know the source from which you acquired.
It was Fox. It was on Fox.
Oh gosh, there you go.
I'm gonna check that out. I don't really. I tend not to believe a whole lot of news outlets.
I'm just a messenger.
So here, one thing I'll just add to this. Understand, a lot of these stuff we're talking about, even from the 50-year mortgages to some of these things that you see publicized, understand, there is motivation behind the message.
Of course.
So the motive, understand. I think, and I was looking at John Hope Bryan. He's talking about how the U.S. economy is driven by consumer spending. I think it's 70% or something like that. So we are going to constantly, there is going to be a constant influence for us to spend money in some way, whether it be on housing, whether it be, remember when we were younger, Black Friday was a day. It was the day after Thanksgiving. That was Black Friday. So they kept looking at ways to extend it. Now it's Black Friday. I've seen Black Friday stuff start in October, right? Black Friday in October. Or they even do, some people go, oh, Black Friday in July, just to kind of do stuff to stimulate, to get you to spend more. Then you got Black Friday, you got Cyber Monday. You do all of these things. So understand what's happening. We're being influenced to spend money to stimulate the economy. So they try to do things to stimulate it. Interest rates drop. So, okay, now that encourages you to spend to buy a home. That's why Laban said, look, we naturally go, okay, interest rates are low. This is the time to buy. But at the same time, maybe it is, maybe it isn't. I would say it's always a good time to buy. I'll say that, right? But it's about how you buy, right? And if you go in with the end in mind. But I would just tell you, a lot of these things are there to stimulate. It's okay, if we can't lower the interest rates, maybe we can make mortgages longer so that you pay less. It's going to be something to try to get you to spend money. And that's what the main motivation behind these messages are.
That is a very well thought out, good answer. I was just curious because it was a big topic of discussion on our political show.
The interest rates going up was?
Yeah, because they were not. People were very angry about it.
Well, and again, it's
going to be 8% in the next 2 years.
I have always said, as an investor, I really don't care what the interest rate is if I can make a cash flow. So, I mean, it changes your spending. And that's where, again, as an investor, you go making offers that might be lower than what a seller's expecting. But it's because I'm basing it on my money and what I got to be spending on my money to buy this, and me along with everybody else. It's not, even if there were cash deals, all right, well, you can pay cash, but a lot of times if you need something, you're going to end up, getting either a HELOC or something versus digging money out of your pocket to pay for it, especially if it's a major improvement or something. But yeah, and there is, man, I'd like to talk about it. I probably shouldn't. But there was you
shouldn't, then you shouldn't.
There's no implications, but there was an announcement recently of a former banker that is becoming a small business owner in the way of
that's good. The American dream.
Yes, but it's funny because as soon as I saw the purchase price and everything, I'm like, his bank would never lend money on that business. I've looked at the financials. Like,
yeah,
I don't know how this makes sense.
Yeah.
But it's one of those things where, but listen, the guy has money. Like, it's not a bad way to spend your money. Although I could give you 22 different options to put that money someplace else to make more money.
See, I said 22. That's an interesting number there. Larry.
Yeah, it is. But it's one of those things where I don't know if he did his due diligence. Like, I sat down, I looked at this property with a client. I sat down with a township. There are wetlands all over. And so in the news article, he commented about how he wants to add a few features. And if you do anything to the impervious soil, you're going to need stormwater management, and you've got wetlands, and you're not going to be able to add anything. So if your business plan had anything to do with adding structures, I don't think he's going to be able to do it. And I don't know who his agent was or anything like that, but it put I cannot wait to see what happens.
Wait, what kind of property is
this
proposed?
is a seasonal business. This is a seasonal business in a lower traffic count area, in my opinion, although more affluent. It's an affluent area. And it's been in business 20 years. But like I said, and maybe it's because of the last few years, but you're talking, revenue of 105, expenses of 93. And then one year when they had to do like paving around the area, revenue was 106 and expenses was 113. So, when people evaluate it is, as a business owner, you want to reduce your taxable income. But when you go to sell, and if there's cash under the you just have to do things by the book. If it's a cash business, record all your cash. Like, this is,
it's reeking of that someone is not recording on. It's because there's no way you're going to be operating from a deficit. And you said how many years they've been in business?
Oh, it's been in business 20 years. I think the current owner, the previous owner owned it since like 2013. So,
that can fly in the first 3 years. That's not flying any time after that.
But even when you look at the purchase price from the previous owner to the current purchase price, that's when you're like, dude, as a client of the bank, if I would have taken this project and said, this is what I want to do, they'd have been like, no.
They would have been like, good luck.
But again, he paid cash. So, it'll be interesting to see. So, seek advisors before you make decisions. And again, it's exciting news. Like, they ran a story, and I wish him luck. I hope it goes well. But man,
but you're
a lot of dim.
You're obviously questioning.
It's curious. It's a lot of curiosity around.
It's a lot of ice cream to sell and a lot of rounds of putt-putt golf. So I mean,
a lot of cake.
Yeah. So hopefully they have birthday parties scheduled all summer. And that's the thing. It's a seasonal business. So how long is our spring going to, this past year, we didn't have spring until June. And so anytime you buy seasonal businesses, you know what I mean? Like, you got to count on 5-6 months of revenue, 12 months of expenses, right? You got taxes. I mean, I don't know why this got so stressful for me.
Maybe
I have no skin in the game, and yet I see people make business.
Maybe they're going to repurpose. Maybe they're going to repurpose the space.
Bro, you can't. No, you can't. Like, it's an ice cream parlor. Maybe it could be a pizza parlor. Like, it is.
What comes with it? How much land comes with it?
It doesn't, 5 acres, 4 of which is unusable because it's wetlands. Like, frontage is king.
Hey, pay attention to the zoning. It might be something happening coming down the pipe.
And listen, that's the other thing. There are times I sat in a meeting and watched a commercial property owner come in. He had R1, R2, which is residential zoning, right in a busy commercial area. I was in the meeting for some other purpose, and he sent his female manager in to request a zoning change from R1, R2 to B1. And the 3 supervisors, in less than a minute, look, yep, Okay, you're approved from R1, R2 to B1, and I'm like,
so there's precedent. There's precedent right there. There's precedent.
It's a different township, but you just added like $500,000 in value to this property because as a residential, it's not doing anything, but as a business now. So yes, pay attention to your local municipalities before you buy something. Sit down with the engineers and say, hey, if I'm going to add this to the portfolio of like, is that okay? Like it's 2 parcels, right? So
yeah, I would say, man, it might be because here's the thing. I would pay attention, especially when you say around wetlands. Anytime there's waterways, I get real concerned environmentally because around this, because there are companies, bigger companies who come in, and it could be another play where somebody's coming in, something's being built where there will be like some kind of chemical runoff that they just kind of that happens, and they know that they can kind of get away with it over in kind of places like what you're talking about, like wetland areas and things like that. So just be mindful because they don't have any intention of building anything usable. It's just like, oh, it's just runoff, and they know that they can get away with chemical stuff, and especially if they know who's doing what.
But one other thing that when I did my due diligence on this property, it is like 1 parcel over from a residential street. And so one of the things I asked the township is, hey, if I subdivide the back of the lot and offer it to the residents so their lot can now be twice as deep. And that was something that I could do, but there were 3 residential owners and you would have to get all 3 to want to do that. And now it's basically a landlocked parcel. So there's not a lot of value even, you know what I mean? So it's like I skinned the cat as many ways as you could, and I still couldn't find the value. So then to see somebody who was in banking, and it was weird. It's weird because I don't know how it's going to flush out, and maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. And he
all
has
about revenue.
Up his sleeve.
Follow the money, Lave. It's all about revenue. So look, the town wants money, right? So the money. This is how I look at a lot of these things. Money has to come back in, right? Taxes, things like that, pay more money to the town or to the municipality, whatever. Yeah. So a residential house the taxes are what the taxes are. It's not like that's not gonna move the needle. But if you build something else that's going to pay a lot more taxes, then that can move the needle a lot more. So
for sure, and especially if it's going to create jobs or something like that. But that's
the argument. It's going to create jobs. It's going to do these things. It's going to draw more people in. It's going to create X, Y, Z.
My fear is that this buyer didn't talk to anybody. You know what I mean? Like this is
he just made a mistake.
It's a legitimate fear.
I just think he thought he could buy it and had the money to do the addition or whatever he wanted to do, but I don't think he thought about the infrastructure and the implications of either zoning and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe he's worked through this all and I'm the idiot. But even at the purchase price, I just go to the financials. Like how I look at it like, okay, if you spend X amount of dollars, how long is it going to take to recoup that in profit? Right. I'm not talking in revenue, right? Because what is your investment? You can only pay it off with profit, essentially, not only with profit. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can't say, oh, I'll do 100,000 in revenue over the next 5 years, and that's $500,000 justification. It's like, no, of that $100,000, you hope 20,000 is profit. So then if it's 20,000 a year in profit and you spent 500,000, it's going to take you 25 years to pay off that investment. Again, you can look at it how different ways, or people will evaluate property differently. But I want to know with the profit, how long will it take to pay down this property? And again, if you pay it cash, you have no debt service. So but there are costs, right? Ongoing costs.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
Yep.
Did this make sense? I feel like I don't.
No, it does make sense. That's why I asked it, and that's why it was brought up.
No, I think he's talking about more with this deal that he didn't.
Yeah, this deal. I feel like I should call this guy and just say, hey, can you tell me more? And I don't want to say it doesn't make sense to me from outside, but he's got to know something that I'm not. I don't know.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. A lot of times we got to think outside of the box, right? You may think a little different from me. Like I may know that I know something that you don't know. Just like how you know things that someone doesn't know. That's about to happen. You got somebody that's on the board, like some things.
Yeah,
it's about to happen. So people who listening may not understand, but just understand this is very simple for me. It's always follow the money, right? Follow the money. Follow
that's all it is.
So who's to benefit? And if let's just say if some zoning is going to change or something, it's because it's going to be beneficial. Those people who changed in the other township, they just within less than 10 minutes made a decision because the town's going to make more money. That was the bottom line.
I agree with that. And that was where I thought it was the appropriate move. It just baffled me how quickly somebody could come in, make a request, and immediately add value. And I think you're right. The township looked at it and said, hey, this is never going to develop residentially. It doesn't make sense. And whenever because they've since rezoned the whole township. But at the time, it was just like, wow, the guy that made the request, he's since passed, but he had Muhammad Ali on his yacht on Lake Erie. The dude knew some people. So yeah. But it's not the grades you make, it's the hands you shake. But you better do your due diligence.
Said, yes.
You better do your due diligence, bro.
I like that. Another Laban one-liner.
And it could not be truer. And so Laban,
yes,
you would agree the interest thing is probably not viable. You find it hard to believe.
I find it hard to believe just because I know, the administration especially wants the Fed to drop rates, and it's not how it goes down. You know what I mean? That's not how it happens. But I think when you evaluate everything, if we're starting to have a housing crisis, they got to look at either incentives for first-time home buyers, the 50-year mortgage, implementing something to enable people to start churning again. Like my concern, there's not a lot of new construction. And the problem with that, new construction is usually done commercially, commercial lending. Like it's volatile. They don't know what the rates are going to be. If by the time I start this project and end it, if my rate has adjusted in the 5 years and it's not for the better, it's going to make my projections change immensely. So although you can talk to your parents when they said, listen, we bought in the late 80s, early 90s, 16% was my interest rate. So go pound sand. I think it's just one of those things where people that have to buy and sell will be doing so regardless of the interest rate. And I think in 2020, even in November of 2020, people were like, okay, I've got some equity in my home. I have a really low interest rate. I'm going to plan on being here for a while. And interest rates at 6.5% or potentially going up to as high as 8% over the next 2 years doesn't get people warm and fuzzy or all excited about churning the real estate game. So, and I'm not saying that's the end all be all, but we know when a residential home sells, painters get hired, carpet people, all these different subsets of the industry keep that money moving. And I think that's where consumer spending is huge and why, we can end before we get into the robotics and all this automation, because automation might help the owner of the business, but automation has no consumer end to it. Computer, like they don't buy it. They don't spend money out there. So hire people that you can pay that they can go out and spend money on goods and services. The automation thing is making it tough. It's going to make it tough.
I agree. Well, another bang up episode, guys. Great information.
Good stuff.
Great job answering questions and making people feel comfortable about their interest rates and the 50-year mortgage. I think that's going to settle things down tremendously. And everyone has a lot to look forward to as the new year approaches. And hopefully we get a football coach in the next week.
I was curious, and then I want to give a shout out. That was a solid win last night by the men in Kansas.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
huge. First time.
Hey, listen, Mr. Indiana, that Mullins kid, bro, solid. Yeah. Like, man,
Chris his son?
No, I don't think so. No.
I kept wondering. I'm like, is that not Chris Mullins?
But he banked in his first three, and then a couple minutes later, he hit a deep three that didn't even barely touch the net. So I just love that UConn keeps producing these studs. And again, who wouldn't want to play for? I almost said it. Who wouldn't want to play for Danny Hurley? I know that Duke, his brother from Duke, is a clown. I've hated him forever. But who wouldn't want to play for Danny, which takes us to the who is going to come in and coach UConn football, because we need these kids. I've already seen it. Guys going to the portal. Like, we need Chip Kelly or some Daryl Bevel.
I would love the names we mentioned, but I was looking to see how the carousel was going. You tell me. I want to know your thoughts on this one, Steve. I saw Kentucky. Was it who just let go of
Mark Stoops? Mark Stoops.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, Stoops is a interesting name. I'm thinking,
he'd be great, dude. We don't have the money. I mean, we're paying $2.5 million.
Made money. It's one of those things. I'm like, yo, you made a ton of money. But sometimes people are like, I made enough money, and they got to pay him to leave too. So it's like, you know what?
Exactly.
They got to pay him to leave. He could be with us for 5 years and kind of do another run.
Or he could get $37 million to stay home and do nothing.
Yeah, he's gonna get the $37 million anyway, but he's not gonna have the fulfillment and have fun. I'm just giving that was a name that popped up. I would
love if we could.
That would be interesting.
They have to have listen, dude. They have to have some tie to New England. Nobody is coming to New England without family or something up there. Even Mora had family in the area. I know, but that's where. And listen. I'm sure he left because they don't have a conference. That had to be one of the big reasons, dude.
He left because he wanted to be out west by his home.
He seemed to like it out there. I was like, there's no other way you're going to.
He spent more time in Utah than he did in Connecticut.
And that's okay. I'm just saying.
And he lived and died in the transfer portal.
Well, and we need somebody that understands New England, both the weather and it's not even a cultural thing. It's like you gotta. Like UConn has had such great coaches that are so productive that football, for some reason, it's like fleeting. I don't understand why you don't have a coach that wants to come in and that's where it concerns me that it's more administrative and whether it's AD or something, because we should have all the tools and resources to bring in the right football coach that can elevate the game to compete like basketball does.
We dropped the ball, man. It started
many times, though.
We dropped the ball back right after we left, when we didn't go. Because if correct me if I'm wrong, Steve, I believe we were one of the first teams one of the first schools approach when it was like we about to raid the Big East, and we said no. To my knowledge, right? We was like, nah, we're gonna wait it out, and we waited, and we got screwed. We dropped the ball back then, and it's coming back to haunt us. We went to we got to get into a conference. I think that's the end all be all. We got to get into for the most part, got to go to ACC, figure it out, get into the ACC, and the next person coming in needs to be able to help usher that in. And I think a name like Stoops can do it. I think a big name has to do it, but I don't know. Like you say, we can't afford them, but you can afford somebody who don't really need the money. So you got to kind of go that way. I'm just thinking you got to get into a conference.
Yeah, I agree with that.
You have to.
I think agree with you 100%.
I think the ball was dropped when the Patriots didn't come to Connecticut and we didn't share a facility like the Steelers and the Pitt Panthers do. I don't know. That or the worst was when we were told UMass and UConn would play in Hawaii, and that didn't happen.
Well, that was a recruiting tool. I don't know who told you. Somebody told you that on a recruiting trip.
Bro, listen, dude, it was in the media guide. Oh my goodness, hold on. Hold on.
Whoever that was in the media guide that somebody controlled what goes in there. It wasn't like.
Do you see whose media guide this is?
Kyle Muncie?
Yeah. It might have been in the 98 one. But dude, they had in this thing that we were going to go to Hawaii to play UMass. Yeah, this was rated one of the better guides in the country, I remember. This is solid. Really good. Like, dude, that dude is man, and we bought him braces. Anybody remember buying this dude braces? Yeah.
Oh, you talking about
Randy.
Randy? Yeah.
Yeah, I tell you, this right here is a legend.
Laban loves Randy so much.
Oh, Randy!
I know he does. I
would love to get into a cage match with Randy. Match with Randy.
You can have a steel cage match with Randy.
I would love it. I would love it.
Now, I mean, realistically, we need a coach to come in who is going to excite the fans, who is going to put asses in the seats and make us attractable to the ACC. That's the bottom line.
Yeah, and the kids, dude. We have to have kids that want to play for this coach.
I know you.
I mean, I feel bad because I know one of the guys at Penn State that love Franklin, dude. Love Franklin. Played as a freshman. He's going to be a junior, and I don't know what's going to happen. But it's an interesting time for these kids, the opportunities, and I remember, and it was the Bill Bradley thing when he came to Penn State and then he was out in a heartbeat. And it's like, dude, that's not fair that these coaches can come in and do that and the kids can't. But that can of worms got opened, and man, it's just wild. It's crazy.
Lave, you're pulling up stuff, so you had me go digging the crates, pull some things real quick.
Which one is that?
That is
2003. Oh, 01?
01.
Okay. Do they have a shot of me beating Willis McGahee and Philip Buchanan in that? No, not that.
No, I don't think that's on that one. No.
Some of these is that
Tritsy? Was that Robbie?
Rashad? That's Drayton. That's Io, and it looks like
who's in the middle there?
Tabor. That's Rashad.
Oh, okay.
That's Rashad. Yeah.
I'm gonna go with some of these older ones.
Look at you breaking out.
I'm just digging in the crates real quick.
Oh, listen, dude. My jersey. I'm pretty sure I have that 100-year man on my sleeve, but my parents got that for me after I graduated. They somehow got my jersey, and I don't know if it has that on a sleeve. Yeah, that's the weak link right there. Weak link. Carl Bond.
Oh, Carl Bond. Oh my gosh, yo, Carl was so clutch.
Oh man, he was.
Toto.
That's hilarious, right there.
So we got a couple of those things. Just pull that up.
That's cool.
And the last but not least, the label like this one.
Steve, did you know Tavar Kloss?
Of course.
Yo, that dude would dap you up and snap his fingers around your thumb. That's how big his hands were.
He's a legend.
Last one. This is one
classic.
98 Lab.
Best team ever.
Yeah.
I'm so torn. If they win this bowl game, we'll be tied, and I don't like tying. I don't like
bowl game. Wait. They're not making announcements for those yet, right?
No, but they're 9-3, dude.
No,
if they win their bowl game, they're 10-3 with us.
They'll tie the record.
Yeah, so at least they'll talk about us again.
Yes.
So,
yes.
All right. Well, thanks, Steve. So. You're the man, bro.
Yes, you are.
I am the man. I am the man.
You are.
Steve is that dude.
For Laban Marsh, the king of real estate in Erie, PA, Nedvonne Young, Fresh Fold Laundry Co. And this has been Broker Than You. Remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges, throw them right back at life. Hello, and welcome. This is Steve Cully, the best podcast host in the universe, with a very special episode today.